Hi, welcome to the show with Ron. I'm Ron, and we're here for another day of trying to understand what's behind the headlines, the context and the commentary of what's going on out there, so you're not just swept along with the flow. So let's get right to it. Uh, just checking my tech here. Okay. Obviously, we've got a good one to start out today. Was a sort of a bombshell. I know CNN wasn't even able to report directly the news yesterday. They just said it was a good day for Trump, saying the Supreme Court seems to be skeptical about keeping him off the ballot in some states. This crazy report came out on Biden, which, oh my goodness, he has memory problems. I can't imagine. Well, how did this happen? This is a bolt out of the blue. But essentially, they were saying in the special report on this background alleged wrongdoing, or, keeping classified documents of all things at his house. They seem to imply that Biden is senile. Again, not anything that anyone who has watched the news is surprised about. And campaign rocked angrily. Biden angrily pushes back at special counsel's report. Here's some of the context that worries the Democrats now. The Comey moment, where in the final days right before the 2016 Trump-Hillary Clinton vote, they had a report somewhat like this that came out about Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified documents, and the fact that it came out right before the election campaign, right before the vote, and seemed to confirm some of the stuff that Trump had been accusing her of. Probably in that case, it did maybe tip the election. It caused some people who might have voted for Hillary to vote for Trump. And at that time, there was a lot of screaming and yelling about Trump, but he was maybe an unknown quantity. And Hillary was maybe the safe bet. She was the institutional character in the race, and Trump was the outsider. So it seems that some in the Biden administration are worried that this report will have some similar effect. Now, it's very far before the election. The election's being out in November, later this year. But what it does do is it brings to the fore. There's panic, fury, and blame inside the White House after report targets Biden's age. That it brings this issue into the light. I'm not sure if it really does. As I've talked about, we've looked at many articles in the press that have tried to reframe this age debate with Biden to kind of protect Biden. All of the big mainstream news media have done that. They say something that's completely disingenuous. They say, it was before, I guess, Biden's last birthday. So they're saying, well, many people say 80 is too old to run for president, but Trump's 77 and that's almost 80, so it's fine. There's no problem. Of course, nobody was saying that. And you'll see those exact terms in several newspapers. It's suspiciously mirrored across many newspapers, and it's often not couched as opinion, analysis, or commentary, just as news. They're reporting to you that you're mistaken to think that 80 is that high a number. But what everyone is saying is, I've seen clips in the media and on social media in particular of Biden acting senile. And I wonder if he is senile and maybe unfit. So that's the real issue that's going on here with people. questioning his age. And I see this, the Clinton advisor saying this is terrible for Democrats. I wonder, my first impression, I wonder if it is because, like I say, the media thinks that they have been smoothing this over, that they've been providing cover and protection for Biden. Maybe the Democrats think that. Maybe the campaign, Biden's campaign, thinks that. But I think people who see this, have seen this stuff online for a very long time, and people are making their decision already about the candidacy because mostly they either think Trump has to be elected this time or the country will collapse if he is elected. So people are making their judgments based on that. And if they have to vote for Biden, they're just going to grit their teeth and bear it when it comes to his age. And I know, I try to be kind of nonpartisan here, and I know many Republicans and Democrats, and the Democrats I know, the people who, and I mean, some Republicans who oppose Trump, most all of them have this idea that, yes, Trump is awful, he's a Nazi. And thus, I think that Biden is wonderful. He's the greatest president ever, and he's doing a fantastic job. And he's not too old. He's only 80, and Trump is 77. They have to buy into the aspect that Biden is good, and just because they need to defeat Trump. So I think people have already, drawn the lines along where they're going to vote. And the Democrats seem to have said, we're all in on Biden. He may not, who knows if he can live to the election, but we're all in on him, which is bizarre. I just can't imagine this country, United States of America, the best they can offer is Biden and Trump. It's the same sort of thought I got in the last two elections. Hillary Clinton, one of the most unlikable candidates, one of the most unelectable candidates there was. And Trump, he's really the rhino, the Republican in name only. He doesn't embody any of the values the Republicans have. But I understand he was an electable person, and they got him over the line. They thought they could manipulate him, and he did follow through with many neocon dreams and policy, but I don't know. And, and then in the next election, we have Biden and Trump again, just supposedly, not supposedly, the greatest nation in the world, the most dominant nation in the world ever, and on this planet, that our great multicultural, diverse society that, Biden, Trump, Hillary Clinton, these are the best people that we can put up. I think many people would come down, many people would go beyond that and say there are better people, but people like Clinton and Biden, and to a lesser degree Trump, once you capture the mechanism of the party, you can manipulate the primary mechanism of the primaries to put the guy in that you want in. So these are, Biden or Trump or Clinton would be institutional choices as opposed to really choices from the voice of the people. So Super Bowl, yeah, I will be watching. I'm not a sports person, can probably tell that, but I like the technical aspect of the NFL. Super technical. It's like chess with many more rules and with human players. I've always found it fascinating. More about Biden. Photos of showing him looking like an elderly man in his pose there. More about Trump, more about civil war. Don't have any doubt that we need context and commentary this year. This is a big year for the U.S. and thus for the world. Election threats, tech millionaires. It's another one of these. It looks like Warner Brothers is maybe going to write off this Coyote versus Acme movie. What a shame. I didn't mind about the Batgirl or Batwoman, whatever that was. But I'd like to see the Coyote versus Acme. Earthquakes in Los Angeles. Kanye West, anti-Semite. It's kind of business as usual here. Here's more business as usual. We've got the NFL. We've got Taylor Swift. I wanted to point this out here. All this stuff where everyone is claiming that people are secretly queer. And I guess that's a catch-all term for all of the variations we have now. Queer, I guess that's okay to say. And that everyone is sending signals that they're queer. This is a modern contagion. This is the idea that an artist, Picasso, Hemingway, whoever, all the way up to pop stars in the present day, that they are reduced to what they want to do with their genitals. This is a reduction. This is a reductive thing that we have done to our artists. And in my experience back to the 70s and 80s, I remember, in academia, people talking about, all the critique and the reviews were trying to recast previous generations of articles of artists in terms of their queerness, and that everybody was queer actually, and all those. Again, I've talked about reviewers before. When you review anything for any reason, you're often saying more about the time that you're in rather than really the context of the subject at the time. So everybody in the 80s writing the articles trying to say everybody was always gay, and they were always sending signals about that. It had a lot to do with mainstreaming gay people to make sure that the public was going to address the public health crisis of HIV infection. That's completely understandable. But we do go through times, as we are in now. Maybe it's a lot of young people online focused on their own bodies, their own growing lives. But I just think it is reductive to reduce everybody to their the desires of their groins. Now I had some people, a person kind of talked to me about this and challenged me, had I seen this Tucker Carlson interview? And I hadn't, and I watched a little of it. It's Putin droning on and on. I don't see what the issue would be with allowing Putin to have his say. Give him a couple hours on TV. I understand why they don't want that, and because the media has decided to back up the White House and say that we do need to be involved in this war and we do need to keep sending the money over there. Personally, I agree with that. I can be a little cynical about it, but I agree with that. I want the U.S. to be the policeman of the world and make sure that wars end in the right way for us and in the wrong way for our enemies. You spend the money today over there, and you're not going to have to spend it later here. But I also understand people who say our national debt at $34 trillion is way too high, and who cares about wars way over there. I understand why people would feel both ways. I think the blowback for this interview is that people are teed up to hate and denigrate Fox News people, which again is understandable. Fox News was the author and the genesis of a lot of the media polarization that we have these days. That's in itself, that's a generalization. I know, people, you can go back further and look into the 70s and 80s and say, you can feel the left-wing contempt in the news media, and maybe there needs to be some pushback, but Fox went way too far. So people want to hate him anyway. I don't think there's any, and I understand people say, oh, it's a softball interview and he just let Putin say what he wants. I think they should have given Putin 2 hours on they don't have to have him any interview, just let him speak. Remember, if you have a memory long enough, after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait over 30 years ago, everyone was so freaked out about another Vietnam War that everyone thought it was wonderful that Saddam Hussein was given, I don't know how much time it was, some time on American TV to make his case and give his viewpoint. And that was wonderful. And George H.W. Bush, the father, he did the same thing in Iraq. They were given that to make sure that especially the Free Society of the United States could make a judgment for themselves about the war that was going to happen in Kuwait and Iraq involving the United States. So back then we thought it was wonderful to give these dictatorial guys, let them have their say, especially in a free society like the United States. It's not hurting anybody. And I think they're just dumping on him because they do not, they're, like I say, they're already ready to cast scorn upon Fox News related people or people who used to be in Fox News. And with one voice, most of the media has closed ranks behind the Biden administration to say, yes, we need this war and we don't want to hear anything that opposes it. So that's my review of that. Let the dictator have his say. We're free people with minds, and we'll make our own judgments. Easy money is out there. Stocks are closing at record high. The Fed's all set up to keep the rates low. It's because of the election year. Doesn't mean anything about the economy, really. O.J. Simpson has cancer. Musk, or some people just turn up again and again. We got this stuff down in South America, and got Venezuela. We got Ecuador. See, this is sort of the once in a generation time when the U.S. is not really interested in more foreign deployments and getting involved in these sort of thing in conflicts. We got Russia invading Ukraine. We got Hamas taking all the hostages, and then Israel losing the propaganda battle in the way they're conducting the war there in the Gaza Strip. And then we have Iran pulling the strings from behind the scenes, hitting U.S. soldiers in Jordan, getting the Houthi rebels in Yemen to disrupt trade down there. We have China, who is really undergoing a terrible contraction in its population and its economy. It's looking bleak for the future. They're closing themselves off from the world. They've got a dictatorial leader who is recombined the main vessels of power in the state there in China into one again, and so they're thinking about, hey, let's crack down and do something about Taiwan. It may be our only opportunity to do so. So it's also happening here down in Venezuela, where they've said, U.S. or the whole public, uh, the whole European coalition of countries that enforces its will, its policies, its international agreements around the world. This may be the time for Venezuela to take over this trackless land, but it's loaded with oil, just coincidentally. So this is something that is testing the mettle of the Western liberal democracies. Are we going to keep order or not? May not. And Trump seems more unwilling than any other president in U.S. history, if he becomes president, to engage in more of these foreign wars. So the world is actually changing. I know with every election, they're always set up as, if one side wins, there's a disaster, and the other side wins, there's a disaster, and there's a huge gap. In most U.S. presidential elections throughout my life, not really much difference in the two candidates in terms of their policy ultimately. But this year, there is a big difference, and that will have profound consequences for the world, one way or another. Florida schools piloting year-round classes. When I was a kid, I hated school, and that occasionally you hear people talk about that, and that made my blood run cold as a kid, and I even feel it as a grown-up. Like, oh my gosh, that's just the worst eventuality I could imagine. And I think we've all seen this guy's videos. The cobbler. That YouTube channel. Shoe repair. I don't know. Just it's interesting what kind of things become satisfying or compelling to watch. And here's something I hope you find satisfying or compelling to read. It's not much of a segue, but this is my novel. Young people find their dreams and failures in Bangkok, and then go on to the furthest places in search of something the modern world can no longer give. This is the story of There Are Still Unknown Places, my new novel on sale at Asia Books and on Kindle ebook. It's a tale for a new generation, disillusioned by the promises of the world, wanting to search for their destinies in far-off places. So that's my book. It taps into a lot of the themes of disillusionment and sort of being scared at the changes that are coming in the world that seem to be happening so fast. And that's kind of why I have this channel, to try to understand the perspective. So it's not just the facts that are often being fed to us by both right and left-wing huge conglomerates that present commentary, analysis, or opinion as just fact because they're backing one candidate or another. So before we go, we always get some wisdom from The Art of War, from a Chinese guy who lived more than a millennia ago. I've got this pack of cards, and there's one of these axioms on there every day. So today we have, score a small victory along the way. Strategy, use a minor lapse in your adversary's attention to gain a minor prize. Basis, small victories can mean the difference between winning and losing. So with all of these, you want to look at, how do you apply this sort of thing to your business or your personal life? And I think the answer would be, with each person, we each have, now I don't look at these ahead of time, maybe I should, but see, I think you could look at this and say each person has a certain amount of energy that they can apply in business or life. You can't fight all your battles all the time. You can't decide you're going to win today or lose today because you just can't stand it. Everything's got to be a step at a time. Anybody who's building a business, building a relationship, or has a health struggle knows that. It's eventually reduced to one day at a time, or you're going to ruin it. So this means that whatever you're doing, just take it a bit by bit, win your little victories as they come along, because that's all one person can do usually. You usually can't win all at once and get everything. It's the beauty of everything is in the journey. So that's my channel. I hope you'll like and subscribe, and come back where we understand the context of the news. This is about, don't go marching in anyone's parade. Don't go down swinging for anybody else's cause. Understand what's going on, and you can sit back and decide what you want to do. I will see you tomorrow.